Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Live in One Day, a Fintech Paradigm Shift. I'm Kevin Flanagan, Director of Marketing for Micronotes, and I'll be your moderator. Before we begin, one quick reminder, you can type any questions you have into the question box on your GoToWebinar toolbar. We should have plenty of time to answer those questions at the end of the session. So with that out of the way, let's get started. We have two presenters and a special guest today. The first presenter is Parker Steed, Director of Channel Sales for Micronotes. Also with us is another colleague, Chris Prine, Client Success Manager for the company. And our special guest is Juliana Halvorson, Vice President of Marketing for Pioneer Bank in New Mexico. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Parker Steed.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. And before we jump too far into the solution, I want to take a moment to talk through some global trends that might give us some context for the conversation. We've seen some changes in terms of consumer traffic, physical consumer traffic and digital consumer traffic. And there's no exception here in terms of banking. Banking has seen similar trends. And so when we look at branch versus digital traffic, not only might people be ordering more, technology goods online or maybe even their groceries online, they're also depositing their checks in a digital space. So we see branch visits go down, we see digital traffic or online banking visits and mobile visits go up. So the next question is, how are people combating this in this online banking marketing landscape? What have we done so far? And there are a few things that can be done. Let's talk for a second about the secure side. Once people log into online banking, there's actually relatively limited options here. One thing that we've seen both in banking and outside, back to global trends, is this idea of a banner ad. So now we've seen it make its way into banking, and we've seen it, like I said, on the secure side. But what we've also seen is that the results are not great. Over time, the click-through rate gets lower and lower, and at this point, we're seeing somewhere around 0 or just less than that percent of click-through rate. And so we're constantly looking for other methodologies to try to adopt better solutions and adapt really to this shift. Well, is the problem that there aren't any solutions out there? I don't think that's the issue. There are thousands of solutions out there. The question is, why aren't those solutions being adopted more quickly and helping us solve this problem? Well, talking to some marketers, we know that only about 3% say that the solutions that they've tried to implement integrate well. And like I said, that's partly because we're working with both unsecure and secure side marketing here. And secure side marketing is very challenging. Solutions that integrate well, that's a tough thing to find, and most don't. So we rely on traditional marketing tactics, email, direct mail, etc. But even if we do, get over that hurdle, if we can bridge that gap, the other issue that we find is that these solutions just aren't very easy to use. Over half of them say, we can't figure this thing out. So not only is it tough to find a solution that we can actually get live, once we get it running, can we actually use it? So that's some background as to the issues that we saw as opportunities to come up with Micronotes. So what is Micronotes? Micronotes is an AI-driven marketing automation company, and we use interviews to gain information from end users on the secure side. And what do we do with this information? Well, we can use it to cross-sell. A to Z cross-selling, anything from auto loans or auto insurance to Zelle or fill in the blank e-service, bill pay, e-statements, and so forth. But we also are just trying to better understand and learn from those users to improve those relationships. So we want to deepen those relationships. So we cover the implementation hurdle. We've streamlined and simplified integration and reduced the time for that. We've also automated a lot of the marketing metrics, including sales reporting. And this is classic headache for marketers, is how do we calculate an ROI on this? So being able to track sales makes that a lot easier. And not only is the implementation or the integration easier and have we automated a lot of the platform, we can start learning on day one. And this is critical. This is what we're talking about today. How do we learn on day one? Well, we can ask questions to our end users, untargeted questions that allow us to better understand them and their needs. One of those is Net Promoter Score. What is Net Promoter Score? For those that don't know, Net Promoter Score is something that Bain & Company came up with a few years back that essentially allows us to bucket our consumers into different categories and tell us what they think of us, whether that's a promoter, whether that's a detractor, or somewhere in between. They're not quite sure. And the score is calculated very easily by taking the promoters and subtracting the detractors. This allows institutions to compare themselves to similar institutions or similar firms within an industry. Obviously in banking, this would allow you to compare yourself to other institutions. Well, some people complain that, you know what, it's nice to have a score and know where we sit in terms of our competitors, but we don't really understand what's generating that score. I want to know what are the insights or what are the motivations for our users giving us the scores. So we took it one step further and we said, all right, what's the driving motivation for that score? And you can create these categories or use the ones that we've used as best practices, whether that's technology or service. But then your end user can take it even a step further and say, this is exactly why I feel the way I feel. In the example here we have on the screen, they're talking about lobby hours. And this is critical feedback that we can say, you know what, we actually could increase or extend the lobby hours for that specific branch. And what's beautiful about this, because we're on the secure side, we know who that user is. We can reach out to them, express that we heard their concern, we're making a change. And that's what's so powerful about the tool. It tells us how we're doing, but also why we're getting the score we're getting, and gives us some fuel to go and change that, and deepen those relationships and improve those with our end users. So before I talk any more about Micronotes and what it does and why it does that, where we came from, I'm going to turn the time over to Chris to introduce a special guest today. He's going to talk more about her experience with the tool so far.
Thanks so much, Parker. I am so happy to introduce Juliana Halvorson. Juliana is Vice President of Marketing at Pioneer Bank in New Mexico. She has extensive experience in marketing and graphic design. And Juliana, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I think it would be helpful just for those listening today to kind of understand a little bit about Pioneer's journey in this whole process. Can you talk a little bit about what did Pioneer see in the Micronotes solution that interested you from a marketing and cross-sell perspective?
Well, the biggest benefit I've seen so far is through your Net Promoter Score, because mostly the comments, we get, people rate us, but when you get a medium or mediocre rating, you kind of want to know why. And so the notes options where people can give a response just has been so, helpful with us. So we can reach out to the customers to, discuss the issues they have, or to do what we can to do to, to alleviate any problems. It's been wonderful.
That's really great to hear. And I appreciate the background there. Can you talk a little bit about how you've engaged clients in the digital space up until now?
We've used, social media, but you don't reach just your customers. And we've used Google ratings, but, usually when you get a rating, like from Google, usually it's the bad ones. Sometimes you get the good ones, but people usually only give ratings when they're angry at something. So this has enabled us to reach out to every customer. Even if they're happy, they may give us some suggestions that are just very helpful to helping make our services better.
That's great insight. Parker was mentioning, at the beginning about the historically long length of time in implementing tools in this space, and actually seeing results, more importantly. Has that been true in your experience? And also, can you talk a little bit about your experience in that regard with Micronotes?
Yeah, with Micronotes, like you said, the results were instantaneous. As soon as we put the campaign live, we started getting results immediately. Yeah, because when you reach out on social media, again, you're reaching everybody, and you just don't get the results that you want because you don't know how you're actually reaching the customer. You're just getting some information, if they comment on your post, but then you really don't know if they're your customer. Because sometimes I know our bank particularly, we get confused with other banks because there's other pioneer banks in the nation. So with Micronotes, we've been able to actually target our customers and then focus on what their needs are.
That's really great to hear. I'll add that we often hear from other clients as well that the length of time required to go live with a marketing solution is also not only what you mentioned, but also getting the look and feel right. So if you're using a marketing platform, you want it to look like the rest of your brand, have a similar message, have a similar look and feel. I wanted to hear your insight as far as that goes from a look and feel perspective. What we're showing on the screen right now is the Micronotes app and building that app. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, modifying and updating it to match our color scheme with our logo and everything. It was very straightforward, very easy to use. You just need the hex colors, from your website colors. And I like that you can customize it because with so many people trying to, scam people, you can make it look and match your site exactly, so people know it's legitimate. And it was very easy to use and update.
Great. Another very common obstacle faced with marketing automation tools is actually developing the content, right? What the end user sees. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in leveraging, I know you have the Net Promoter Score, as you mentioned, or the Net Promoter interview launched. Can you talk a little bit about that process, building that out, and utilizing the template database for that as well?
Yeah, I was amazed when you showed me the template databases that are available out there, because there's a lot of questions with your templates that are questions I probably wouldn't come up with, but you guys have already thought of them. You guys, when we went into the template database, it was so easy to use, and we could go in there and modify if we needed to. Initially, we didn't modify it. We used your questions, and they worked perfectly. It's just, I'm very thrilled with the way it works, and it makes it very, very easy to use. We're excited to use some more of your templates. Oh, sorry.
No, that's great. Great feedback. I appreciate that. So with the Net Promoter Score, you didn't have to do too much customization?
Not at all. Yeah.
Okay. It's great.
Yeah, we just went in there and told it what audience we wanted to target, which in this case we targeted every customer. And then you had the questions already preset, the answers preset. So, and we could modify them if we wanted to, but we didn't, and it worked out great.
Great. And then one of the most important things, and as you talk about, you need to kind of show a return on investment for the marketing tools you're using. And so I wanted to kind of highlight some of the results you've seen, and pretty impressive here. I'm just looking at what we have on the screen here. In just over a month that you've been live, over 3,200 online banking users provided scores, engagement rate of 18.5%, which is incredible, and then 1,500 detail free responses, which is actually an optional section of this interview. So it's pretty incredible. I want to hear a little bit about your reaction to the results, and also, if you could, how you've used those results so far.
Yeah, some of the results that surprised us. There were problems where we didn't know they existed. Other ones we already knew they existed. Like I was saying, we're in the process of updating all our ATMs to ITMs, and some of the ATMs we currently have are outdated and they don't accept deposits. So we expected comments like that, and they were right on target what we expected. But we also were very happy with some of the positive comments we get. We had a huge response rate of rating of 10, so that was very, very good to hear. But if we took your advice and we download, now we're going to start downloading the results weekly, and we have a staff that will reach out to the people that give comments to let them know what we're working on and what we're doing to improve. Because, you have all this great questions, but you want to reach out because you want to do something with that data. And so we're, being proactive, reaching out to the customers. So, yeah, it's been great. I mean, it's an eye opener because again, you see things you didn't expect, and that's why it's always good to reach out to your customers. This is a perfect way to do it.
Excellent. And so I know you talked a little bit about how you're using it today. Does this kind of initial campaign give you any ideas as far as how you can use Micronotes in future campaigns or the results of those?
Yeah, exactly. Because like some of them, if they have specific questions, like with the ATMs, we hope to reach out to people that have given responses and create a new survey that says, hey, we've updated our ATMs. What are your thoughts now? So we can still reach out to them, let them know we're working on it. Other than, we're still going to do a personal contact, but it's nice to get more feedback, a month down the road or 2 months down the road when our new ATMs are up and running.
Excellent.
We want to target, with what you have, we can target people for auto loans, mortgages. It's limitless is what we can do with it.
Excellent. Well, Juliana, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share your experiences using Micronotes.
And I have a quick question before we turn it back to Kevin, and he'll close us out. I just curious, Juliana. I know Micronotes was live for you in under a month, and I think we have the exact time frame here. It looks like 26 days. Can you give us an idea of how that compares to maybe some of the other marketing tools you've tried to implement in the past, and whether that's above, below, or maybe right in the middle of what you'd expect?
Well, it was actually pretty early for what I expected. It went live pretty quick. You guys have been great to work with. The data we now got put in there, I see that we can work with and target customers. To be honest, this is the first platform in this format that I've used, so to compare it to other ones, I couldn't give you a time, but I've been very pleased with how fast this came up and how fast I can implement it. And just, even if I create a new campaign, I can immediately make it live, and it's great. I don't have to wait, any certain time. It just worked out wonderful.
Great. Well, I'll echo Chris in saying thanks again as we turn it back over. We really appreciate the time, Juliana.
Well, thank you, Parker, Chris, and especially Juliana. It was very informative to have you here. So it's now time for questions. If any members of the listening audience have something they'd like to ask either the Micronotes team or Juliana, you can type it into the question box you'll see in the GoToWebinar control panel. So I'll give you a second, and we do have one question here, guys. To do NPS scoring using Micronotes, do I have to purchase a license from the company that developed NPS?
I'll let Chris answer that one.
All right, great question. And actually, that's we've heard that feedback from other people. Is they've actually looked at standalone solutions for engaging their customers and members regarding the NPS score. So there's plenty of solutions out there. Some of them can be pretty pricey, actually. And the benefit of Micronotes is it's one of the tools in our template library, which you can leverage and without any additional cost, and pretty quickly, as you can tell from some of the comments provided. So.
Thanks, Chris. Second question from the audience: what other types of integrated campaigns can I run in Micronotes on day one?
That's a great question. I'll take that one, Kevin. So yeah, that is a good question, right? What else is untargeted that I can use to talk to my end users about to gain insightful information? We have a few in the template library, maybe revolving around events or just important information, potentially financial literacy or interesting data that we'd like to convey to our end users. But we have clients constantly coming up with new ideas, anywhere from, I want to know who my users are banking with outside of my institution, right? If we want to understand more about our competition, or really anything that you could think of asking your end users, you can create that interview yourself. So it is customizable. You can ask any question you'd like, and then there's a variety of untargeted interviews as well that we offer from a template perspective.
Okay, great. Don't see any other questions. So with that, I will thank you for your time. And if you'd like a copy of the slides, or you think of any additional questions, you can drop us an email at info@micronotes.com. And of course, to learn more about our company and our products, you can visit us on the web at www.micronotes.com. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a very good rest of your day.